The emergency beacon crackled through the static as Joy pressed deeper into the abandoned research complex. His boots echoed against metal corridors lined with shattered observation windows and twisted support beams. The Kepler station had been humanity's most advanced xenobiology facility until the Vorthok raids turned it into a graveyard of twisted metal and broken dreams. Joy adjusted his rifle strap and checked his scanner. 3 days of searching through the wreckage had yielded nothing but scrap metal and painful memories. His squad had been wiped out in the initial attack, leaving him the sole survivor with a desperate mission to recover critical research data before the enemy returned. A low growl echoed from the shadows ahead. Joy froze, finger hovering over his weapons trigger. The sound wasn't mechanical or human. It carried a primal edge that made his skin crawl and his pulse quicken. He'd encountered enough alien species during the war to know predator sounds when he heard them. Moving carefully around a collapsed wall section, Joy discovered the source. Figure lay crumpled against an overturned laboratory table, partially hidden by fallen ceiling panels. At first glance, he thought it might be another human survivor. Then she moved. The creature was undeniably female, but definitely not human. Her skin held a deep crimson hue that seemed to shimmer in the dim emergency lighting. Powerful muscles rippled beneath torn fabric as she struggled to sit upright. Her hair cascaded in midnight black waves past her shoulders, framing features that were both alien and breathtakingly beautiful. Most striking were her eyes. They burned like molten gold, tracking his movement with predatory intelligence. When her lips parted in another growl, Joy glimpsed fangs that could easily tear through combat armor. She was magnificent and terrifying. Blood seeped from multiple wounds across her torso and arms. Her breathing came in short, pained gasps. Whatever had happened here, she'd taken the worst of it. Yet even injured and trapped, she radiated dangerous grace. Joy's training screamed at him to maintain distance. Unknown alien species, possibly hostile, definitely wounded, and unpredictable. Protocol demanded he report the contact and wait for backup that would never come. Instead, he found himself kneeling just outside her reach. "Easy there," he murmured, keeping his voice low and steady. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her golden eyes narrowed, studying his face with unsettling intensity. She spoke then, her voice a rich contralto that sent unexpected shivers down his spine. The words were completely foreign, but her tone carried unmistakable wariness, mixed with something else. Pain, perhaps, or defiance. Joy slowly set his rifle aside and reached for his medical kit. "You're hurt pretty bad. Let me help." She tensed. As he moved closer, muscles coiling like a spring, ready to unleash violence, but she didn't strike. Perhaps she recognized that he posed no immediate threat, or maybe blood loss had weakened her more than she wanted to admit. When Joy's fingers brushed against her wounded shoulder, she hissed between those deadly fangs. Her skin felt warm, almost feverish, with a texture like silk over steel. She was built for combat, every inch of her radiating lethal capability. Yet there was an undeniable femininity in her curves that made his mouth go dry. "Easy," he repeated, applying pressure to stem the bleeding. "I've got you." She watched his every movement with those burning eyes, occasionally murmuring words in her alien tongue. Joy found himself responding, even though he couldn't understand her. Maintaining a steady stream of reassurance as he worked, her wounds were deep, but not fatal. Whatever had attacked the station had left its mark on her, but she'd clearly given as good as she got. Scratch marks on nearby walls suggested claws, and the metallic scent in the air hinted at spilled blood that wasn't all hers. As Joy cleaned and bandaged her injuries, he became acutely aware of her proximity. She smelled like exotic spices and something wilder, more primal. Despite her alien nature, she was undeniably attractive in ways that made his pulse race for reasons having nothing to do with fear. When he finished treating her wounds, she caught his wrist in her grip. Her fingers were longer than human normal, tipped with retractable claws that pressed just firmly enough against his skin to remind him of their presence. She spoke again, her voice softer now, almost questioning. Joy met her gaze steadily. "Don't know what you're saying, but you're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." Something shifted in her expression. The predatory wariness remained, but underneath it, he glimpsed something vulnerable. Something that recognized kindness despite the barriers between their species. She released his wrist and attempted to stand. Her legs immediately buckled, and Joy caught her before she could fall. For a moment, she was pressed against his chest, her warmth seeping through his tactical gear. She felt solid and real and alive in ways that made his heart hammer against his ribs. Her hands flattened against his chest as she steadied herself. Those golden eyes looked up into his, and Joy felt something electric pass between them. Recognition, perhaps, or attraction that transcended species boundaries. She pushed back slightly, testing her balance. Her movements were graceful despite her injuries, reminding Joy of a wounded predator that remained dangerous even compromised. When she spoke again, her tone had changed, less wary, more curious. "Shh, Sophia," she said suddenly, pressing a hand to her chest. Joy blinked in surprise. A name. She was giving him her name. "Joy," he replied, mimicking her gesture. "Joy," she repeated, her accent transforming his simple name into something exotic and appealing. They regarded each other in the flickering emergency lights, two beings from different worlds connected by circumstance and something deeper. Joy found himself studying the elegant line of her neck, the way her torn clothing revealed tantalizing glimpses of crimson skin. Marked with intricate patterns that might have been natural or decorative, Sophia seemed equally fascinated by him, her gaze traveling over his features with open curiosity. When she reached out to touch his face, Joy held perfectly still. Her fingertips traced his jawline with surprising gentleness, exploring the differences between their species. A distant crash shattered the moment. Both of them tensed, listening to the echo of footsteps and metallic scraping from somewhere deeper in the facility. Joy grabbed his rifle while Sophia's claws extended instinctively. They weren't alone anymore. Joy helped Sophia to her feet, supporting her weight as they moved toward the nearest exit. Her body pressed against his side, warm and supple despite her alien nature. She was stronger than her injuries suggested, but still needed his help to maintain their pace as they navigated the wreckage together. Joy found himself acutely aware of every point of contact between them, the way her hip bumped against his, how her breath tickled his neck when she leaned close to whisper warnings in her native tongue, the intoxicating scent of her skin. Whatever was hunting through the station was getting closer. But for the first time since losing his squad, Joy didn't feel alone. He had someone to protect, someone who'd already proven she could fight beside him. Sophia's golden eyes met his as they paused at a junction, and Joy saw his own determination reflected there. They were stronger together than apart. The real question was whether they'd survive long enough to explore what was growing between them, the maintenance tunnels. Beneath Kepler's station stretched into darkness like arteries of a dying beast. Joy supported Sophia's weight as they navigated the narrow passages, her crimson skin gleaming with perspiration in the dim glow of his flashlight. Every step sent tremors through her powerful frame, but she refused to slow their pace. Behind them, the metallic scraping grew louder. Their pursuers had found their trail. Sophia pressed closer against Joy's side. Her breath warm against his ear, she whispered urgent words in her alien tongue. He couldn't understand the language, but her tone conveyed clear warning. Whatever was hunting them wasn't giving up easily. "Sway," Joy murmured, guiding her toward a side passage that angled upward toward the surface levels. His free hand gripped his rifle, while the other remained wrapped around her waist. Fingers splayed across the smooth expanse of her lower back, where her torn garment had ridden up. The contact sent electric jolts through his nervous system. Even injured and fleeing for their lives, Sophia's presence affected him in ways that defied logic. Her alien beauty drew him like gravity, making it difficult to focus on anything beyond the feel of her body moving against his. They emerged into what had once been the station's hydroponics bay. Shattered grow pods leaked nutrient fluid across the floor, creating treacherous footing. Sophia's enhanced senses proved invaluable as she guided them around unstable sections with subtle pressure. Against his arm, a metallic clang echoed from the tunnel behind them. Close, too close. Sophia suddenly tensed, her nostrils flaring as she sampled the air. Her golden eyes widened with recognition, and she spoke a single word that sounded like a curse. Before Joy could react, she was pulling him toward a cluster of overturned equipment. Her movements suddenly fluid despite her injuries. The first raider emerged from the tunnel entrance just as they found cover. Joy's blood ran cold as he recognized the distinctive armor of Vorthok scavengers. These weren't random survivors, were professional killers who specialized in hunting. Through ruins for salvage and slaves, 3 more raiders followed the first, their weapons sweeping the hydroponics bay with practiced efficiency. They moved with the confidence of predators who'd cornered their prey. Sophia's hand found Joy's shoulder, squeezing gently. When he looked at her, she pointed to herself, then to the raiders, making a slashing motion across her throat.
Back for message.
Was clear. She wanted to fight. Joy shook his head firmly. She was still wounded, outnumbered, and he wouldn't let her risk herself for him. But Sophia's expression hardened with stubborn determination. Her claws extended with soft clicks, and Joy realized she wasn't asking for permission. The lead raider called out in broken standard, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We know you're here, human. Surrender the female, and we might let you live long enough to watch us break her." Crude laughter followed the threat, and Joy felt rage building in his chest. These scavengers had no idea what they were dealing with. Sophia's lips curved in what might have been a smile, if not for the predatory gleam in her eyes. She leaned close to Joy, her lips brushing his ear as she whispered something in her native tongue. The words sent shivers down his spine. It's not from fear, but from the intimate promise in her voice. Then she was moving. Sophia flowed from cover like liquid shadow, her injured state apparently forgotten. The first raider barely had time to raise. His weapon before her claws opened his throat in a spray of crimson. She spun past his falling body, using his bulk as a shield while she closed distance with the second enemy. Joy had seen combat veterans in action, but nothing compared to watching Sophia fight. She moved like violence made flesh, every motion economical and deadly. Her alien anatomy gave her advantages no human could match. Enhanced reflexes, natural weapons, and a predatory grace that turned combat into a lethal dance. The second raider managed to fire a burst from his assault rifle, but Sophia was already elsewhere, flowing around his attack like water around stone. Now her claws raked across his armor, finding the weak points with surgical precision. He screamed once before her fangs found his neck. The remaining 2 raiders tried to coordinate their attack, but Sophia was a force of nature unleashed. She used the chamber's terrain to her advantage, leaping between overturned equipment with feline agility. Her torn clothing revealed more of her crimson skin with each movement, and Joy found himself mesmerized by the deadly beauty of her assault. When one raider tried to flank her position, Joy finally joined the fight. His rifle cracked twice, precise shots that sent the scavengers spinning into a wall. The final raider turned toward this new threat. Giving Sophia the opening she needed, she struck from behind like a crimson shadow, her claws piercing through the back of his armor to find vital organs. The raider convulsed once, then went still. Silence returned to the hydroponics bay, broken only by their heavy breathing. Sophia stood among the carnage, blood speckling her skin and clothing. Eyes found Joy's across the chamber, and something primal passed between them. The recognition of shared violence, of lives taken to protect each other. Joy approached slowly, his gaze traveling over her form with new appreciation. She was magnificent in her lethality, every inch a warrior goddess carved from crimson marble. When he reached her, she was trembling slightly, either from exertion or the aftermath of combat. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his hands moving over her body to check for new injuries. His touch lingered longer than strictly necessary, exploring the alien contours of her form under the guise of medical concern. Sophia caught his hands in hers, guiding them to rest against her chest where he could feel her rapid heartbeat. Her skin was warm silk over steel, yielding yet strong. She spoke softly in her native tongue, words that sounded like gratitude mixed with something deeper. Joy found himself lost in her golden gaze, acutely aware of how close they stood. Her scent surrounded him, exotic and intoxicating. When she leaned closer. He didn't resist. Her lips brushed against his in a kiss that was both tender and fierce, tasting of alien spices and shared danger. The kiss deepened as Sophia's arms wrapped around his neck, pulling him closer. Her body pressed against his, soft curves molding to his harder planes. Joy's hands found her waist, spanning the narrow space above her hips as he explored the feel of her through the torn fabric. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Sophia's eyes had darkened with desire, and Joy realized the attraction between them transcended species barriers. She was alien, dangerous, and absolutely captivating. "We should keep moving," he managed, though his voice was rougher than intended. More might be coming. Sophia nodded, but her hands remained on his chest, fingers tracing patterns through his tactical vest. She spoke again, her tone questioning, and Joy wished desperately that he could understand her words. Instead, communicated through action, taking her hand and leading her toward the bay's main exit. But now their contact felt different, where before it had been necessity. Now it carried the weight of mutual attraction and growing intimacy. As they left the carnage behind, Joy couldn't help but steal glances at his alien companion. The way she moved, the predatory grace of her stride, the glimpses of crimson skin revealed by her battle-torn clothing. Sophia had proven she could protect herself, but she'd also chosen to fight beside him rather than abandon him to his fate. That meant something. In a universe where survival often demanded selfishness, she'd risked herself for him. The realization sent warmth spreading through his chest that had nothing to do with physical attraction and everything to do with something deeper. They emerged into the station's main corridor, moving together with increased synchronization. Sophia's enhanced senses guided them around potential threats, while Joy's tactical knowledge kept them oriented toward their goal. But with each step, Joy became more aware that their destination mattered less than their journey together. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it as partners. The Crimson Huntress had claimed him as surely as he'd claimed her, and neither seemed inclined to let go. The observation deck of Kepler Station offered a panoramic view of the star-scattered void beyond. Joy stood beside Sophia, their reflections ghost-like in the reinforced transparisteel as distant suns painted the darkness in shades of silver and gold. 3 days had passed since their escape from the hydroponics bay, 3 days of growing intimacy as they worked together to restore the station's communication array. Sophia's wounds had healed with remarkable speed, her alien physiology proving far more resilient than human biology. But the closeness forced by their situation had created bonds that transcended mere survival.
Ow.
Joy found himself studying the elegant curve of her neck as she worked. The way starlight caught the crimson highlights in her dark hair she'd fashioned. New clothing from salvaged materials, garments that accentuated rather than concealed her alien beauty. The fabric clung to her curves in ways that made Joy's pulse quicken whenever she moved. More than once, he'd caught her watching him with those molten gold eyes, her expression holding promises that made his mouth go dry. "Signals getting stronger," Joy murmured, adjusting the communication console's settings. The device had taken considerable effort to repair, but Sophia's intuitive understanding of technology had proven invaluable. Her people were obviously advanced, even if their methods differed from human approaches. Sophia leaned closer to examine his work, her warmth radiating against his side. Her scent had become familiar now, exotic spices mixed with something uniquely her. When she spoke in her melodic language, Joy had begun to recognize emotional inflections, even if the words remained foreign. The console suddenly crackled to life, filling the observation deck with alien voices speaking in rapid, urgent tones. Sophia straightened as if struck by lightning, her entire body going rigid with tension. Joy didn't need translation to understand the significance. Her people had found them. Through the viewport, shapes began resolving against the star field. Sleek vessels that moved with predatory grace, their hulls gleaming like polished obsidian. The ships were beautiful and deadly, clearly built by a civilization that valued both aesthetics and lethality. Sophia's hands trembled as she activated the communication array, speaking rapidly in her native tongue. The response came immediately, multiple voices overlapping in what sounded like relief mixed with anger. Joy caught his name mentioned several times, though the context remained unclear. "Sophia," he said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. She turned to face him, and Joy saw conflict warring in her golden eyes. Joy, pain, and something that looked like regret. She spoke then, slowly and carefully, as if trying to make him understand through tone alone. Her hands moved expressively, gesturing between herself and the approaching ships. Then touching his chest with obvious tenderness, the message was clear enough. Her people were coming for her. The largest vessel moved into docking position with mechanical precision. Through the reinforced ports, Joy could see figures moving within the ship's corridors. More of Sophia's kind, crimson-skinned and dangerous, coming to reclaim one of their own. Sophia caught his hands in hers, pressing them to her heart as she spoke urgently. Her voice carried desperation now, as if she were trying to convince him of something vital. When he remained confused, she did something that surprised him completely. She kissed him, not the gentle exploration they'd shared before, but something fierce and claiming. Her lips moved against his with desperate passion, her body pressing close as if she could somehow merge them into a single being. Joy responded instinctively, his arms wrapping around her waist to pull her closer. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Sophia's eyes glistened with what might have been tears, though Joy had never seen her cry. She spoke a single word that sounded like a name, then pointed to herself before touching his chest again. "Joy," she whispered, her accent making his. Names sound like a prayer. The docking bay's pressure seals engaged with metallic finality. Heavy footsteps echoed through the station's corridors, accompanied by voices speaking in Sophia's language. Her people were aboard. They were coming fast. Sophia suddenly grabbed Joy's rifle from where it leaned against the console. For a terrifying moment, he thought she meant to arm herself against her own kind. Instead, she thrust the weapon into his hands while speaking rapidly, her tone urgent and commanding. The observation deck's entrance iris dilated, admitting three figures that made Joy's breath catch. They were obviously related to Sophia's species, but where she was elegant, curves and predatory grace, these newcomers radiated pure martial power. Their crimson skin bore intricate scarification that spoke of rank and achievement, and their weapons were works of art as much as instruments of death. The leader, female whose bearing suggested command authority, spoke sharply to Sophia. The tone was clearly disciplinary, though not unkind. Sophia responded with equal firmness, gesturing toward Joy in ways that seemed protective rather than dismissive. The conversation grew heated, multiple voices overlapping as the newcomers apparently debated something significant. Joy caught fragments that might have been his name, along with words that carried obvious emotional weight. He stood ready, but non-threatening, letting Sophia handle the negotiations while prepared to fight if necessary. Suddenly, the leaders' attention focused on him with predatory intensity. She approached slowly, her movements controlled and deliberate. When she spoke, her words were heavily accented, but recognizably standard. "You are the human who aided Sophia during her trials." Joy blinked in surprise. "Trials. Found her wounded and helped her heal. We've been working together to survive." The leader studied him with golden eyes that reminded him of Sophia's, though these held more skepticism. "Sophia speaks of your courage in battle, your willingness to risk yourself for her safety. Among our people, such actions carry significance." What kind of significance? Before the leader could answer, Sophia stepped between them. She spoke rapidly to her superior, her voice carrying unmistakable determination. The leader's expression shifted from skepticism to something approaching amusement. "Sophia claims you as her chosen mate," the leader said bluntly. "By our laws, this gives you certain rights, but also obligations. You would need to prove yourself worthy through combat. Trials." Joy's pulse hammered as he processed the implications. Chosen mate. The word sent heat spiraling through his chest, but also uncertainty. What happens if I refuse? Then Sophia returns with us, and you remain here with your own kind. Then the choice is yours, human. Joy looked at Sophia, seeing hope and fear warring in her expression. She'd claimed him, but the decision remained his. He could stay safe in his familiar world, or follow her into the unknown. The answer came without hesitation. Do I need to do? The combat trial took place in the main docking bay, cleared of equipment to create an improvised arena. Joy faced a young male from Sophia's clan, both armed with traditional bladed weapons rather than advanced technology. The rules were simple: prove his courage and skill, or forfeit his claim to Sophia. His opponent was fast and strong, with natural advantages Joy couldn't match. But human unpredictability proved its own weapon. Where the alien fighter relied on trained techniques, Joy improvised desperately, using his environment and unconventional tactics. Sophia watched from the sidelines, her golden eyes never leaving him. Her presence gave him strength when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. When his opponent's blade opened a gash across his ribs, her sharp intake of breath reminded him what he was fighting for. The battle ended when Joy managed to pin his opponent using a wrestling technique no alien warrior expected. Victory came, not through superior strength, but through determination and the willingness to endure pain for something precious. As the alien crowd acknowledged his triumph, Sophia rushed to his side. Her hands moved over his wounded torso with gentle urgency, checking his injuries while murmuring words that needed no translation. Joy caught her face in his hands, studying the emotion blazing in her golden eyes. "I choose you," he said simply. Her response was a kiss that tasted of tears and triumph, sealing a bond that transcended species boundaries. Around them, her people voiced approval in their melodic language, accepting the human who'd proven himself worthy of their finest warrior. Later, aboard Sophia's ship as it departed Kepler Station, Joy stood in their shared quarters watching human space dwindle behind them. Sophia's arms wrapped around him from behind, her warmth pressed against his back as she rested her chin on his shoulder. "No regrets?" she asked in carefully practiced standard. Joy covered her hands with his, intertwining their fingers. "Only that it took so long to find you." She turned him in her arms, those molten gold eyes holding infinite promise. "Among my people, chosen mates are bonded for life. You understand this? I'm counting on it." Their kiss deepened as the ship carried them toward alien stars and an uncertain future. But Joy had no fear of the unknown, not with Sophia at his side. She'd claimed him as surely as he'd claimed her. Together, they would forge a new destiny among the stars. The Crimson Huntress had found her mate, and the human who'd saved her had discovered something worth saving in return. In a universe vast and dangerous, they'd found each other, and that was enough.